Hey Rockstars, I'm JB, expert salesperson and master presenter.
I'm the doctor, psychologist, and behavioral expert.
This is the Entrepreneur Mastery Lab podcast.
We're high-performance coaches that help service-based professionals and entrepreneurs take their skills to the next level.
70% of entrepreneurs fail, which is why every week we have real talk with real entrepreneurs to help ensure you are not one of them.
We're also the inventors of the Be Rich mindset,
where we rise to mastery,
inspire greatness,
celebrate knowledge,
and help others along the way.
So join us in the lab.
And now, on to the show.
What is up, Rockstars, and welcome back to the lab. I'm JB.
I'm the doctor.
Hey, if it's your first time joining us, welcome to the Entrepreneur Mastery Lab. You're in for a treat where we have conversations pretty much every week with real professionals, real talk to give you the insight and wisdom, get better at what you do. If you are a returning listener or viewer, thank you for joining us again. We love having you and we appreciate your support. Don't forget to give us a like, a subscribe, follow, or a 5-star review so we can influence and impact more people just like you.
Do it. Do it now. Do it right this second. Just do it.
Awkward pause. Okay, we're good. Hey, Doc, good to see you again, brother. How are you?
Don't lie to me like that.
Not giving me a lot to work with, man. I would never lie to you. I can't lie with his face. I'm an open book.
That's true. And it usually is good to see me. That is an accurate statement.
It's pretty easy for me to say I'm an open book when we're on a podcast too, and nobody can actually see my face. But it's true. I am like one of those guys that wears his heart on his sleeve. So like you kind of know what I'm dealing with emotionally. I'm pretty straightforward about it. You, on the other hand, you're like, you give nothing, man. You give nothing.
Years of a trained therapist. I can't give anything. It's part of the gig.
You're like, your pupils don't even widen when you hear something surprising. Like the most you might do is like a sit back.
Well, in all my years, I don't think you can surprise me anymore. So there's that area of shock is gone from my life, as far as I can tell.
How long did it take you to like train yourself for that though? Or how many stories did it take you to hear before you're like, I'm done. I've heard it all.
Well, I mean, luckily, I think that's one of the pluses of 20 years in the hospitality industry of dealing with people. It's been built up plenty. So by the time I was in the therapy world, it was already kind of well established. But I do want to correct you on one thing real quick. They can see us. We're on this thing called YouTube.
So some of them can see us.
So if you are on the podcast and you didn't know that we have a YouTube, jaunt over there and then you can see how my expression is stoic.
Stoic. It's like it's pulseless sometimes. I like somebody shock this guy, give him some energy. I always wonder about you, man.
Sorry, I know when to turn it on. That's
right. You do. Certainly know when to buzz my ball. So, anyways, Doc, super pumped. Next guest popping in today. Really good friend of mine and business partner, Paul Solomon, LUHU Advisors. Down here in South Florida, joining us. Paul, welcome to the lab.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks for having me today.
Absolutely, man. Do our listeners and our viewers our favor. Give them a shout, give them a wave, let them know a little bit about yourself.
All right. Here in Boca Raton, Florida, I am a licensed real estate broker for 36 years almost. Licensed insurance agent. That's life, health, long-term care, and annuities. I am a licensed assisted living administrator, and I'm also a certified senior advisor. So my whole world is from baby boomers to seniors.
Well, we're super excited to have you on, man. I know we've been talking about this for a while, so we're grateful for the opportunity. Yeah, I think a lot of our listeners and viewers are probably going like, okay, real estate, assisted living, insurance. You're doing a lot of stuff. Kind of the common thread there, though, is the CSA, Certified Senior Advisor, and kind of the marketplace you work in, right?
Yeah. Fortunately, unfortunately, this all started about 13 years ago with my own parents. trying to figure out how to pay for long-term care for my mom and my dad. My mom had long-term care, didn't know what she had. She was just paying a bill every month, not realizing it was a long-term care policy. And my dad was unhealthy for most of his life. So to try and get any insurance, they couldn't. And my dad started showing signs of dementia about 12 years ago. And I kind of had to figure out, how are we going to pay for my dad? My mom was taken care of to a point, but what were we going to do for my dad? So I started digging into VA benefits. My dad was a veteran and kind of got through that system. Like a lot of people out there, getting, nothing for answers. But I had to keep digging and finally figured that out. And then I got to understand Medicaid planning. And with Medicaid planning, opened up a whole nother world. A lot of people don't understand that. They think they have to be, poor, indigent, have nothing, or spend everything down to get these benefits. And they don't, especially here in Florida. Florida is one of the unique states where we can do planning and set things up and not have to wait for this 3-year look back for VA. I mean, we kind of do with VA, but with Medicaid, there's a 5-year look back of which we can get around all legally. I work with an elder law attorney, and we can do some planning for people and protect their assets.
So, and planning is the right word to use, right? So you share that story about 13 years ago dealing with your parents and kind of having to dive headfirst into this stuff. I imagine because you couldn't find the resources to help you in the first place, and you needed to understand it. But it's really evolved into a planning practice in a lot of ways for anybody in that situation or anybody in that demographic.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, there's not, and again, I've been looking myself in South Florida for all the answers. And, if you go to an elder law attorney, they're going to tell you the legal aspect of it, but they're going to say, then speak to your financial advisor. Well, the financial advisor has no experience understanding the government benefits that are possibly out there. They're going to say, oh, let's take your assets and let's turn it on for more income. Well, that's great, but what happens? Market goes up, market goes down. How long are you going to live with any disability or health issues that you have, and your money could run out? So that's not the right person. I spoke to CPAs. They don't understand the whole concept of the government benefits. So I've had to dig through the people that I know personally, and then out there trying to find the answers myself. And I think I am that unicorn out there, from what I'm being told from a lot of people, that I'm kind of putting it all together. Or if I don't have the answer, at least I have the referral source that I trust, that I know will pick up the phone, because we know that's always an issue, whether or not somebody calls somebody back, but then also understand the senior situation. So I'm going after the baby boomers who are, caught in the middle of all of this, trying to plan for their parents. Usually it's a crisis mode, and okay, where do we turn to? So they'll turn to the sources that they think have the answers, but unfortunately there's so much misinformation out there. And I hear it every day, because, when I go meet either with the professionals or I meet with the families, they start telling me what they think. And I'm like, okay, that's bad information. You don't have the right information. There's things that we could do to help protect the assets, the house. I'll talk about, reverse mortgages, and then I'll turn them over to my reverse mortgage specialist. Wink, wink. And, and it works. And there's so much misinformation about just reverse mortgages. I was with a family the other day, and the daughter's living with her husband, with her mother for the last 4 years, and they're running out of money. They got about $40,000 left. They don't want to put their mom in an assisted living. They don't want to put her in a nursing home, but they're running out of money. I said, okay, what about the house? And they said, we have no mortgage on it. What's the house worth? Well, because being a real estate broker, I've already looked that up, and it's worth $550,000 to $600,000. So I know from my experience working with you, Josh, that, we can probably pull out maybe $250,000 to $300,000, of which now that mother that's 92 years old, they can afford to have full-time help. And that's kind of one of the planning aspects I use, besides possibly getting them Medicaid, which I know I could get for them. They'll have money for the rest of the mom's life. But right now she's crying, not knowing how they're going to pay the aid in the next 3 to 4 months, 5 months, maybe at the longest.
So, Paul, one of the things that kind of I picked up from what you're talking about there is you've got, in the world of the baby boomer demographic or the silent generation, you've got experts, you've got professionals, you've got licensed attorneys, you've got licensed financial planners, you've got licensed loan officers, you've got all these different experts in what they do, but you don't necessarily have anybody bridging the gap between what one expert does and the other expert does. And that's really what you built out in LUHU Advisors, is the ability to kind of take the relationships, the knowledge, and some of that expertise, and kind of carry it from one silo to the next. And so you can actually build something that's relevant to people. And so they're getting good, well-rounded advice and help with this sort of stuff. Is that about accurate?
Yeah, it takes a team. I mean, I'm licensed in what I'm licensed in, but it takes a team to help a family. And it's the frustrating part. And again, I've gone through it myself, so I understand and I feel the pain of the baby boomers, or the people that are the power of attorney, let's say, for that senior that's struggling with health issues, whether to stay at home, and the finances, and then the legal documents. And I kind of put it all together, and I'm able to speak with experience about the legal documents that are needed, but I have the attorney that draws up the legal documents. I bring in the expertise of assisted living knowledge. I don't do senior placement, but I have all that experience with my own family, that I've been in enough of them, and having the license, I understand how they work. So, again, I'll be the quarterback, the spoke, or the middle hub of the spokes that are out there, and give the people, my referrals, and the people, again, that I trust, that do the work to kind of keep the whole thing together. So it takes 3, 4, 5 people. The seniors don't understand that. They don't understand how expensive it is to get old and then be unhealthy and get old, and then what to do with those decisions. They don't understand what the dollar value is. My mom's 93 with full-blown dementia. So I have that experience with my dad first, who then passed away 2 years ago, going through dementia, then now going through it with my mom. I understand the trials and tribulations that these families are going through. So I'm living it and then advising on it at the same time.
Yeah. Well, it's an entire ecosystem, right? And that's where I think it's easy to kind of get lost. In an ecosystem, we've got a bunch of different animals, and they're all connected in some way, right? You remove wolves from an ecosystem, and all of a sudden, the ecosystem in Yellowstone Park starts to fall apart because you don't have a natural predator in there. They're connected to every other animal in that ecosystem. You just know the connections, and you know how those pieces work together better than somebody in a silo might. And that's really where the benefit of working with somebody like you comes into play. And you are a little bit of a unicorn. I don't think there's a lot of people out there that do that really have a good grasp of the bigger picture and how all the moving pieces work together. I'm interested, Paul, you're part of the sandwich generation. I mean, you just kind of described half of it in a nutshell. Hey, I've got an older parent. I know you've got some kids. So you're in this sandwich generation. So you're dealing with a lot of family dynamics and everything that you do, but you're also dealing with the dynamics of professionals and experts with egos, right? So I'm just really interested in hearing from you. What's your experience like when you've got all those different personalities that you're trying to work with?
Yeah, I mean, I clash with a lot of people. I mean, I have an ego, but I also know what works, and I also know, going through it with my own parents, how to bob and weave. And the system, the medical system is broken. I've had my experiences at a hospital, and I've told the doctor straight up, stop giving my dad this medication. You don't know my dad. He went in because of the emergency room, and you have to be an advocate. And unfortunately, a lot of families, the loved ones are down here, the seniors and the adult children are somewhere else around the country, and they either fly in, see what's going on, and fly out. So they're not here to spend day to day. I'm fortunate enough in my family, my brother and sister don't live here. I'm fortunate enough to be that advocate for my parents, to make sure that everybody's doing the right thing. But to have an advocate is huge. Somebody called the geriatric care manager, who I recommend to a lot of families to come in. They'll go to the doctors, they'll go into the hospital, they'll make sure when somebody's, being left from the hospital, going either home or into an assisted living, they'll follow that client for the family, and that's priceless. And, I recommend it, but it's always it's always about the money. What does it cost? It's mind boggling to see that people, whether they have the money or not, whether the adult children would just spend a couple bucks to try and get all the right answers. And that's what stops them either from hiring me, hiring a geriatric care manager, or either hiring an attorney, when they're short-sighted and seeing, hey, let me spend a couple of $1,000s up front, and that's going to save me tens of thousands of dollars on the back end. And that's part of my challenge, is just getting out there and explaining to people what they need.
It's a common thread in a lot of our conversations, right? Getting people to look beyond the now to address and plan for the future, and to be willing to spend a little bit today for something in the future is never an easy ask for people. Hey, Doc, I'm kind of curious, man. This in our society, right? We went through this long period of time, I think, where to become an expert or to become super specialized and only involved in one thing is a kind of the route. And now we're starting to see a little bit more of, hey, you can have your hand in a lot of things. I'm just kind of curious about your experience in your world and your background, if you've seen that same evolution.
Yeah, it's one of those fine lines to walk, right? When you put your hands into all these areas, I think people do that because they're like, oh, there's profit to be had by adding things under my belt. And that's where it gets a little tricky, because that's what we see a lot of, is people that say they're experts in a lot of areas with really very basic knowledge. What I was hearing when we were doing the introduction with Paul is licensed, certified. So you can see that the education's there. You can see that they actually took the time to learn these areas and not just say that. And I think that's the big caveat. And, that's the worry in the mental health world, is that there is a lot of people out there saying that they can handle these things, and they can't, and they have no training behind it. So what I would say to that for all our listeners is just be very careful if you have people that are either in one area or in multiple areas, that they're actually trained in those areas to answer those questions properly, because they can actually do a lot more damage. I'm sure Paul can speak to this, if people going in saying that they know about these processes, and they can lead you astray very easily, and then it can actually do a lot more damage than it does help. So just buyer beware. Know who you're dealing with, and check some references.
Yeah. Well, Paul, I appreciate it, man. Coming from the retirement income space for, nearly 15 years. I mean, you could argue close to 20 at this point, but with the background really in retirement income and a focus on it, I became very specialized, but I learned retirement planning. I'm not a retirement planner. That's not my role or my certification today, but I am able to take that knowledge and marry it with what I do, specialized in the loan officer space. And I'm allowed to bridge the gap, right? In that world, in the financial services world, I bridge the gap between the expertise of advisors and the expertise in housing wealth for boomers and seniors. And that allows me to carve out a pretty unique niche, just like you. I get to be a unicorn because I get to operate in a space that I need to understand multiple areas well. Right. And not a lot of people do. So it's fascinating to me, because I think there's a lot of opportunity for people out there, people in business today and people who are professionals today. There's a lot of opportunities to carve out a role beyond, I think, the traditional, right? The traditional would just be like, I'm going to be in practice doing this. Well, it's like, well, what about connecting all the dots with the people around you? And what can we do with that? So I think what you're doing is pretty cool and unique in that space. But I would anticipate we'll see more and more people doing that, whether it's specifically in your space or not, yet to be seen, but really useful experience to have and a great position to be in.
Yeah. And Doc is right. I mean, yes, I wear all these hats, and I know I haven't gotten all of the business because, again, a lot of people can't walk and chew gum at the same time. And here I come in talking about 4 or 5 very important topics that I know a lot about. And I have a team behind me too. I have somebody, whether it's real estate, whether it's my wife that helps me with the real estate transactions. So I can have her and pass that, I do the initial and then I can pass that along. When it comes to the Medicaid planning, I have an assistant that helps me do the applications. She's been with me 6 or 7 years. So she knows what I'm thinking. I have the attorneys who do the legal documents, but because I understand that, I speak to the paralegals and say, okay, this is what we really need. When I speak to the financial advisor, that I don't try and take away their finances. I try and work with the financial advisor, whether I need to change the name on an account or pull the money out of something. I have that person to do it. So again, it's more my knowledge than doing everything. And, I understand that. And I try and explain that to families and saying, listen, I have people within my organization, but I also have people that's outside my organization that you can keep and use. I just want to be able to explain to them the truths and what really legally, what we can do to get these benefits or get the long-term care planning in place where somebody won't run out of money, and whether that's using products, whatever they might be, or using the government benefits, or using their house, which is most of the time their biggest asset, to kind of plan out, because nobody plans, right? Everybody plans for dinner, everybody plans for vacation, but they don't plan, and that's why there's crisis mode. And crisis mode is what everybody waits for. But now, how are you going to find those answers? Everybody Googles, okay, but there's not a page on Google that says, here's how we take care of Florida, people living in Florida over 75, 80 years old, and this is how we plan. There's not a page for that. So then who do you turn to? Unfortunately, you turn to the person you play golf with, tennis with, go for a drink with, or go for coffee. They're going to tell you their experience, whether it's another state when they had to deal with their mom or grandmother, but not here in Florida and actually going through the process.
I think you guys both bring up a really good point, and follow up on what I was saying a few minutes ago. Getting cross-trained is great. Like getting that information and knowing about other aspects is something that hopefully a lot of professionals are striving to do. And I think that's what JB was kind of alerting to is, know those other areas so that you know how to best serve the people that you're working with. So get that education, learn as much as you can. Obviously, I always go to a protection, so that's why I always lean in on hard on making sure that the people that you're working with are professionals. But I think the other thing Paul said, and JB was alluding to great, is build a good team around you. Build these people that where you know enough of that information to know that when you don't know enough, you know where to send them to. So building that education so that you can help the best you can, but then also building those connections around you so that if it gets past that level that you're comfortable with, that you can send them to the right person to finish it up and really help people out to the best of their ability.
It reminds me, Doc, of one of the biggest mistakes I think you see a lot of professionals make, right? And I'm using air quotes for the people listening in on the podcast, because I have a major issue with this. You get a lot of professionals that allow ego to get in the way of education, and you get people who want to be experts and seen as experts, and then they step outside of their knowledge or their comfort zone, and they make this big mistake of shedding an opinion instead of kind of working with knowledge or facts. And it's a problem, right? Ego's a problem. There's something to be said about experience and the experience of knowing how to connect the dots between different expertises within your greater world, right? Like, so Paul, for you, which is kind of in the demographics of the boomers and seniors and older Americans, and it's being able to connect those dots in that experience. It's also kind of being able to know, like, hey, I don't know the answer to this, nor should I, right? There's an expert that we connect you with that does. But I think that's a big mistake a lot of professionals make, and I've seen it personally. I'm just curious, Paul, from your perspective, have you had to deal with that too, with professionals where like they're stepping outside of their lane a little bit or their area of expertise, and it makes for a bigger challenge?
No, absolutely. And I see it, unfortunately, fortunately, again, which I hate to say it, but I say it multiple times, with attorneys. I've worked with multiple attorneys, and, attorneys really aren't built on the support that they're giving to the family. That somebody walks into an attorney's office, almost like a doctor. It's like a doctor with that too. You go in there with a problem, they're going to fix that problem, but they're not going to ask you then everything else that they should be asking if they really care about what they're doing. And I've gone through attorneys over the last 12 or 13 years where, it was about, okay, here's Medicaid, let's say, or here's the estate docs that we need to do. This is how much you owe me, and that's it. And I would work with the family then above and beyond, and the attorney wouldn't even know that, So I'm doing my job, but I'm also then spending hours after that trying to help the family to really understand more than what the attorney is. They walk into the attorney's office, they're there for 15, 20 minutes, and then I end up being with them for an hour, holding their hand and going through the process. And that's the ego that unfortunately gets in the way. I was with a senior placement person this morning who I liked a lot, just met her the other day. And she was asking me a tremendous amount of questions about what I do and how I can do it. And I recommended, gave her a lead this morning when I met her, because there was somebody that asked me to do senior placement. Now, again, because of my parents and what I've been doing for the last 10 or 12 years, I know almost all of the assisted living nursing homes in the area. And can I place people? Sure, I could, but that's not something that I'm comfortable with. And here I go, just giving that lead to that person when I know that my ego's not in the way. That's not what I'm good at. And I don't know the ins and outs of every assisted living. I've been in them, but a senior placement person knows them well. And I've had senior placements that don't want to understand what I do with the planning aspect of it. And they'll say, no, you're going to steal my client, or you're going to take my client and bring them somewhere else. No, I'm not. I'm going to educate them to the best of my ability. It's going to be up to them to decide if they still want to use you or not. I'm going to bring them back to you. But if I'm giving them more information than you're asking me, that's up to them. And I see it all the time, unfortunately. So it's out there.
Ego's always tough to deal with. So I'm gonna bring this back a little bit to kind of the marketplace itself. I think this is kind of really misunderstood, but broadly speaking, baby boomers, the silent generation, greatest total wealth in this country today in America, largest demographics in this country for the time being. And yet, interestingly enough, when it comes to marketing dollars spent, only 10% of all marketing dollars going to these demographics. So the focus is not necessarily on the marketplace that you're living in, Paul. Do you find that kind of do you see that? I mean, in your world, I mean, is that something where it's like, well, hey, there's just a massive opportunity and a massive need here that's being unmet?
Yeah, I mean, you see it, tremendously, and it's kind of funny because when I speak to the seniors and maybe the adult children aren't there, I always like to meet with either the power of attorney with the senior, or the adult children with the seniors, so that everybody hears the story. But if I work with the senior, they tell me, oh, my son or daughter, they're a doctor, they're an attorney, they're a professional, so they're going to answer all my questions. And I'm like, okay, that's not the case. I mean, that they know what they're good at, but they don't have all the answers. When I meet with the adult children about their parents, they tell me that their parents, oh, they won't go for that, or they won't do that, or this is not their wishes. So the educational part, of which I'm big on, is so lacking, that you're right about the money spent, and that's kind of what I'm going after, trying to get the word out, the things that I'm trying to do, the commercials I'm putting together to try and get that information out there to say, hey, listen, you can do this kind of work, and you can have the ability to purchase, whether it's an insurance product or get these government benefits that can help you protect these assets. I mean, my dad lived till he was 89, unbelievably, because we didn't think he would last that long. He worked 50 years of his life, and we blew, even though I know what I'm doing, we blew through a couple $100,000 to that point. And I scratched my head because I don't think it was my dad's wishes or his intent to work his whole life breaking his back to then blow that all on at the end on care, and people don't understand what Medicare covers or doesn't cover. And they think that the government's there waiting to help them. And unfortunately, the government's not there. And you do have to plan for this. So yes, the education, the dollars spent, the advertising, you see mostly on the financial advisors who have one solution, but there's other solutions out there through insurance products and government that can definitely help families protect themselves from this huge cost that really people don't understand until they're in the middle of it.
What do you like best about doing it? I mean, you talk a lot about the challenges, the difficulty. We've kind of zeroed in on some of the, the tough part of it. What's the fun side?
Fun. You know what? I get the satisfaction, whether somebody hires me or not, knowing that I'm giving them the truth about what's going on out there. And if they don't hire me, that's great. I've gotten past that point of saying, listen, well, I didn't close that deal. And because I work for myself, I don't have to keep statistics on how many people I meet and how many closings I have, whether it's real estate or insurance or Medicaid planning. I know that this is my way of giving back directly or indirectly to the public and saying, here's the information. Again, if it's something I can help with, great. But if not, go to this professional that can help you. And here's who I think are the best in South Florida that can help you. And that's my fun. Yes, it's fun when somebody hires me and I close whether it's again a real estate transaction, insurance transaction, or Medicaid, and they get Medicaid. I've been doing this for 13 years. I'm 100% successful in getting somebody Medicaid. I know going into the family, if I can get that benefit for them. My only challenge is how quickly I can get it, because it's the government. So depending upon how the wheels are turning and, squeaky wheel kind of thing. And that's what my assistant does. She yells at Medicaid all day long to get our clients the benefits that they deserve as quickly as possible. That's the satisfaction I get when she calls me up and says, hey, this one was approved. I know they're going to get approved. My challenge is always, how fast can I get them approved? And with the coaching I give them to get through the process, most of my people are ahead of the curve getting approved quicker because of my experience and the knowledge that I have. So that's the enjoyment and the pleasure I get, is knowing I can. When I walk out of a house and someone doesn't call me back, I'm like, okay, I did the best I can do. I gave them the information. If they want to run with it themselves, they can. It might take them a little longer, but they can, because I'm giving them everything. I don't hold back. I don't say, let me just tell you a little bit, tease you with the information because you have to hire me. No, I'm going to sit there with an hour. I'll tell you what needs to be done. And you want to go hire an attorney and not me, because even though I work with an attorney, that's okay too. But I know that I did the best I can do to give them the right information.
Awesome. Paul, speaking of giving good information and helping people out, we heard that you might have something you'd like to share with our audience.
Yeah, I do this as much as I can, and that's a free consultation. I offer a free consultation to anybody and everybody. Again, I'm strictly based in Florida, so that's Florida laws. Whether I'm licensed, I'm just licensed in Florida. Whether it's real estate and dealing with a house, insurance, I'm licensed in Florida. So if anybody's out of state, especially that has a loved one in Florida, you can give me a call. I only have one phone number, and that's my cell phone, which is 954-540-6609. That right to my phone, which is on 24/7, even though I'm not going to answer it 24/7. It is my only phone, and because I have a loved one, that phone is always on. Like the other morning where I got a phone call at 5 o'clock in the morning because something happened with my mom. So it happens. Or you can email me at paulsolomonpa@gmail.com. That's my email. Again, it's directly to me. Like I said, I have assistants that help me, but the first phone call always comes through me so that I can understand the situation you're in and then decide who really can best advise you, whether it's me. If you're here locally, I'll even meet somebody locally. I'll drive to your home and meet with them one-on-one for that hour. It doesn't just have to be a phone call.
Paul, really appreciate having you on, man. Really enjoyed the insight and kind of laying out where your role exists, because it's such a unique role and you serve such a unique purpose in a marketplace that has serious and growing need. So very much appreciate you joining us, man. Thank you.
No, and I appreciate you guys having me, because again, the more I can get out to the public, through whoever I can get out to. At least if you're not using me in any capacity, there is help out there. You just got to find the right person and situation to get out there. I'd love for you to start with me, but if not, then get the right information. Don't listen to your neighbor or somebody else that might have gotten through maybe a situation that's saying, "Oh no, that can't be. That's not possible." It's out there. Please start with me, and then see what we can do.
Awesome.
Fantastic, man. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, appreciate it. Nice meeting you, Doc.
All right, Doc, I got some thoughts here, and I'm gonna lay them out there. Paul's got his hands kind of in a number of places, right? He's got a lot of broad knowledge, which is nowadays somewhat unique because people get so vertical, and they go so vertical and so niche that you don't see as many people with really broad knowledge. There's a huge opportunity, I think, for business owners, for entrepreneurs, for professionals to be able to do something like this, to carve out a role that really maybe has not existed in the past because it's not super specialized in any individual thing. I think to your point earlier, though, it needs to be done kind of in the right way and correctly. And there's a line there that you have to be careful with. And that might go back to, just kind of recognizing that Paul's a CSA, a certified senior advisor, where you kind of have an ethical standard and a certification and an expertise in caring for that marketplace. So it is designed to give you a broad understanding so you can play in all those fields and work with the experts. And I think that's the key that people have to be careful with if they're going to be pursuing something like what Paul is doing in any space, which is make sure you do have that knowledge and that comprehension, and you're not just playing at it, because that puts you and the people you serve in a really dangerous position if you're not careful.
Absolutely. I mean, that's why I lead with that as the warning. Is I see it a lot in the mental health world. Is there's a lot of coaches out there that went through something themselves, and then they try to use what their knowledge was just from experience to help someone else. And as we know, we're not all the same. We're all very unique. So the reason that you got over something might not be the same reason the other person gets over something. And if you don't know the other areas that could be the reasons why that they're in that area and that situation, you can do a lot of damage. And I've actually seen that over time. And the other big piece, and that's why I always go back to that licensing, that certifications, especially the licensing. Then there's actually an area of, that you can actually go out and file a complaint against or get some sort of safety for who you're working with, right? Like, there's some recourse if they do offer something. Without that, there isn't. And, people don't realize that as much. They kind of think, again, everything is the same. And, that warning is very, very important.
No. Do love, though, that you can build out a role like Paul has, right? You can take a personal experience and have it shape everything that you do from there on out, and allow you to really build out a business model that is, may not have ever existed in the past, but there's a place and a need, an environment where you can really serve and have a great impact, and hopefully some fun beyond just impact. Although I'm going to have Paul get back to me on that one.
No, but that does. I mean, I've worked a lot in that same community, did a lot of work inside assisted living, independent living, and knowing that the biggest thing that I always saw in there was that worry of not sure what's going to happen. And I could see the difference of the families that did the work and got them in a place where they felt secure, and the ones that didn't. And it plays a big role in your health. We know what stress does, right? And at that age, dealing with stress that you don't need to, it's not great for your health. So having that kind of planning and that support goes a long, long way to ending your life in a good positive place.
Yeah, that's an important one. All right, folks. Just a gentle reminder here. If you're still listening or watching and you haven't yet given us a 5-star review, have not gone ahead and liked, subscribed, followed, and shared us with your friends, family, and loved ones, even the people you dislike, what are you waiting for? We're doing this for you. We would love to increase our impact and our influence and really help more people survive, succeed and thrive in business. And the best way we can do that is with your help. So give us a little hand here. We'd appreciate it. And thank you.
Sure. Remember, if you head into the show notes or onto our website or anywhere else you like, you can get our free gift. You can get all the information that Paul talked about. You get all the things that we talk about. And it's all just down there. It's just a click away. Just do it. Click it. You can also find us at JB the Doctor on all social media and at jbthedoctor.com. And always send us some comments because we love when you slide into our DMs.
We do.
All right, I think that's it. We out of here.
All right, JB, I'm out.
Peace out, yo.